문제는 식품을 생산하는 게 아니라 상품을 생산하는 그런 시스템, 특히 그런 분별 시스템의 문제라고 말씀드렸습니다. 이런 과정에서 이런 기여를 해결하면서 동시에 저희가 직면해 있는 그런 환경 문제를 해결하는 중요한 것입니다. 또한 수정을 통해서 이런 해고 얘기가 좀 더 적극적으로 현실적으로 나아갈 수 있다는 생각입니다. 특히 아나 윌슨 학생께서는 우리가 이런 문제를 해결하기 위해서는 실제로 현재 존재하는 그런 대안들을 우리가 하나의 모범으로 받아들여가지고 실천하는 게 더 구체적이고 효과를 가질 수 있는 방법이라고 제안하고 계십니다. 저희 이번 세미나 자체가, 포럼 자체가 각각의 영역에서 신용과 관련해서 이미 존재하는 그런 대안들을 우리들의 그런 현실 인식과 더불어서 공유하자는 게 있습니다. 그러면서 함께 계속해서 발제들을 드리고 계십니다. 세 번째 발제자는 토비아스 레나르트 학생이십니다. 토비아스 레나르트 학생은 벨기에 비영리 시민단체인 에티컬 베지테리언 알터너티브, 그러니까 대안적인 그런 채식 연합의 창립자시고 예파라는 이름을 가진 단체의 창립자시고요. 시민들에게 동물성 식품 섭취를 줄이는 발전에 대해서 홍보하고 하는 실제로 정부하고 같이 활동하고 계신 그런 분입니다. 예파는 특히 2000년 5월에 벨기에 햄즈라고 하는 그 도시의 시하고 함께 70날 캠페인을 시작을 했고요. 그 이후에 전 세계 언론과 도시들에서 주목을 하게 됩니다. 그래서 선진적인 녹색 정책을 추진하는 도시들은 샌프란시스코건, 뉴욕이건, 워싱턴 DC건, 케이프타운이건 등에 계속해서 이 도시의 몸을 따지고 있습니다. 그래서 샌프란시스코는 2010년에는 펠로우 오브 아슈카라고 하는 전 세계 2,500여 명의 세계 영향을 주는 2,500명이 속하는 그런 단체의 위원으로 선택을 하셨습니다. 지금부터 토야서 선생님을 보겠습니다.
Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for inviting me. I'd like to know everyone. Normally I would talk in Korean, but I'm a bit tired from the flight, so I'm going to speak in English. That's a joke, I don't speak Korean at all. I tried to word for thank you yesterday, but it was too difficult. So I'm going to talk to you today about our campaign to stimulate meat production. Just a words about my organization. We are, as the speaker said, EVA, Ethical Vegetarian Alternative, and that's an organization that tries to stimulate people to increase their consumption of vegetarian food. We are 10 people more or less, as you can see here. You can see that most of us are female. That's not my fault. It's because most of the people interested in vegetarian food are actually female. At least in Western Europe, and around 8 out of 10 vegetarians are female. We are, I think, the only vegetarian organization in the world that is structurally funded by the government. So we are funded by the Flemish government, which is a very speaking part of Belgium. It's been touched upon already by Robert, but decreasing meat consumption has a lot of advantages, and I'm talking briefly about these different aspects. And I call them four crises. Crises because they're serious problems, not just things that we will have to address sometime in the future, but really serious problems that we should address right now. And the beautiful thing about meat consumption, or about vegetarian consumption rather, is that by doing one simple thing, one simple change towards less meat, less meat, you can have an effect on four very different levels. You can make the planet healthy, you can make yourself healthy, to make sure that less animals are killed or animals are raised in better conditions, and we can make sure that it's easier to feed the world. So I'm going to repeat some of the numbers that Robert Prudent mentioned, but I have pictures. I want you to imagine that there's 55 to 60 billion animals every year that are killed for food. So I'm not talking about elephants and tigers and whatnot, and fish, but about cows and pigs and other animals. So in case of Belgium, Belgium in his lifetime we get to be around 80 years old when we die. On average, and by then Belgium has eaten 1,800 animals in its life. That's not counting the seafood, mussels, and etc. But for instance, we eat 900 chickens in our lifetime, entire chickens. So that's several hatching zoos together. Now, the animal that you see in the center here, that's actually symbolic of 60 billion animals, right? And I want you to consider the input and the output that goes into them and that comes out of them. So if you have an animal, a lot comes in, a lot has to be fed, and a lot will come out. And I will discuss both these aspects. The input, that's mainly food and water. And we can ask ourselves the question, okay, we feed 7 billion people almost by or with 55 billion animals. What do we need to feed those 55 or 60 billion animals? We need 40% of all the land, all the grain. We need, for instance, 15,000 liters of water for 1 kilogram of beef. That's humongous. We need 76% of all agricultural land and 29% of the Earth's land mass. So if you have a globe and you subtract the seas, then out of every 3 square meters, 1 square meter is used for either animal feed or as ground for grazing animals. Now the big problem is that if you have a certain area of land and you put animals there, your yield, the production of that land in terms of food will be lower than when you put most vegetable crops. It's not like this in every case, but most of the time when we can use a piece of land for vegetable agriculture, then it's much more beneficial. It will yield much more output of protein than when we use it for animal products. And also, if we have a certain amount of food, plant foods, and we give this to animals, and then we eat the animals, we will be able to feed much less people than we eat the plant food directly. It's because when I give one of you a bread of 1 kilogram, you will not gain 1 kilogram of weight, right? Fortunately, because you will use most of that plant food for your energy, etc. There's only a small portion that will be converted to meat fat, right? That's just the same in the case of these animals, the cows and pigs, etc. So you heard by 2050 we will have to feed 9 billion people, more or less, to be expected. That means that we may have to increase food production worldwide by 50 to 100%. Right? We will need, right now we're producing enough food, but for 9 or 10 million people we won't have enough food. So we will have to increase food production. The question is, how are we going to do that in light of several challenges that make it difficult to produce more food? There is land scarcity. We can't cultivate food on the moon right now. We can't cut more Amazon forest. There's water scarcity. There's climate change, which makes it more difficult, which has its challenges. There's perhaps the problem of peak oil, the problem of peak phosphorus. So there's all kinds of different problems that make it difficult to produce more food. Secondly, let's look at the output. What comes out of the animals. That's basically, well, you see what it is. You don't have to mention it. Apart from meat, of course. The United Nations said that animal agriculture belongs to the top 3 causes of every major environmental problem. So whether you talk about deforestation, or the loss of biodiversity, or climate change, or water pollution, for all those issues, all those problems, meat consumption or animal agriculture, please, dairy also, is either the first, the second, or the third cause. Right? So it's very important to tackle that issue. This is a dairy cow, a cow that gives us milk, and in 1 year she will produce as many greenhouse gases as this SUV when it's driving 1 year. Okay, so that's an interesting comparison. If you look at deforestation, there's an area the size of Belgium that's cut every year, forest that's cut every year just for animal agriculture alone. Right? And we have, in Belgium at least, we have a manure problem. These animals go to the bathroom a lot. And if you, in my country, if you eat 1 kilogram of pork meat, then you can imagine a bucket of 16 kilograms of manure. So 16 kilograms of manure for every kilogram of pork meat, right? Of course, another form of output is the fat that accumulates in our own bodies. So the health problem is very much an issue. Obesity, they call it, global obesity. It's rising everywhere, so we have to really tackle that. It's also mental health costs, government costs. And if you look at the future, it doesn't look too bright. We expect that the demand for meat is going to double by 2050. And the demand for those products comes mainly from this area of the world, from Southeast Asia, from India. India and China together make up 1/3 of the world's population. As these countries get richer, they tend to eat more meat, right? So what we will see is a very severe increase in meat consumption in the coming years as people get richer. I don't know what to do about that. I think as Westerners, I can tell the people here that they should eat less meat. Well, we have done it. We have eaten so much meat and are eating so much meat still, right? So it's a hard question. It's hard to tell people like, okay, I understand you get richer, but we shouldn't eat that much meat because we are doing it in the West and we've done it for so many decades. Yeah, here you can see that China is very much a problem in this respect. So the question, I hope I have convinced you by now, the question is not why should we eat less meat and use less animal products. The question is how. And that's the big challenge. I think more and more people, more and more government scientists are convinced, slowly but surely, that we should consume and use less animal products. The question is how do we do that? It's very much a challenge. I don't know what status meat has here, but I suppose that also it's a matter of status here, and that it's a symbol for the good life. In the West, meat is a symbol for the good life, and I assume that the East is slowly but surely imitating the West. Right? In Western Europe, you could say, for instance, you can already say, like, if you take the car just to the corner, to the bakery, and back for a short ride, you can already say to a person, like, you shouldn't do that. That's not good for the environment. We wouldn't be ashamed to tell a person that. But to tell a person that eats too much meat, that's still not accepted as something that's socially or environmentally wrong. There is the fact that we eat so much meat is a given. It's a right. Everybody thinks that's okay, and if we don't do it, that's fine. But if we want to eat as much meat as we want, that's also fine. So it's hard to change this attitude. There's a lot of challenges. Government doesn't want to interfere because government most of the time has the attitude of like, we won't meddle with what's in people's plates. People have to decide for themselves, and a lot of liberal people say like, okay, this is not government's place to tell me what I should eat, right? Of course, there shouldn't be any prohibitions or laws or whatever, but they could be stimulation, sensibilization. There's also a lot of economic interest involved. The meat industry is often powerful, and it's hard for the government to counter it. Another challenge is that animal products are everywhere. I heard that the kimchi here is which is a plant-based recipe, but it's often made with an animal product, with fish sauce or what is it? So in general, a lot of cultures use, and especially in Western Europe, we use animal products everywhere. right? To go without animal products for one day in Belgium is very difficult. Right? Very difficult. I mean, if you go out to eat, you have to go to vegetarian restaurants to avoid all those products. But otherwise, you're going to have them in all kinds of products. They're everywhere. And there is mainly a lack of knowledge concerning the problem. If I ask in Belgium, I don't know how it is here, but if I ask in my country, which of you can name me one dish, one recipe, one vegetarian dish that he received from his grandmother or from his mother? Traditional, something that's in your tradition. In Belgium, nobody can come up with it. I'm talking about a significant dish, not just a side dish, not just like a vegetable dish, a significant meat-free dish. In Belgium, nobody, in the most part of Western Europe, people won't know what to answer to that question. I hope it's a bit, and I think it's a bit different here. I think we have a vegetarian tradition. But in Western Europe, we don't. I think Western Europe is actually the worst place to make a transition to vegetarian diet. Because we don't have the skills, we don't know what to do in our kitchen. And people are very much afraid, if you talk about less meat, like Robert Gooden talked about 25% less meat, everyone reacts right away like, but they don't want us to eat any meat, or people are very much afraid that we want to take all meat. So what we have done in our campaign is to translate this important message of less meat to something that's more fun and something that's more doable, more acceptable to people. And that's called Thursday Veggie Day. This is Dutch. It's much like the Meatless or Meat-Free Monday campaign that you may have heard of. That was stimulated by Paul McCartney. In our case, it's on a Thursday. On Monday in Belgium, a lot of restaurants are closed, so we didn't think it was a good idea. So if we want to work with the restaurants, do it on Monday. We think that this approach is feasible. It's very easy to do. I mean, everybody can go a day in a week without meat. Everybody should be able to do it. The ones who say they can't, well, it's kind of sad. It's effective because also, I don't think personally one day a week is enough, but it will stimulate people to go further. The idea is to discover, for them to discover vegetarian products, to discover that they are good, that they are tasty, that they are affordable, etc. And so they can move on. It's challenging, it's fun. It's sticky, that means you can commit it to memory. I mean, you can remember it. Every week you can know it's Thursday or it's Monday, I should think about eating vegetarian. So in Ghent, what we did was we convinced the mayor, the councillor, the vice mayor of environment in Ghent to make this Thursday Veggie Day an official day. Right? And we became the first city in the world with an official vegetarian day. We worked together with the environmental department, but also with the health department and the education department. Okay? We started with this with an official event and proclamation in May 2002, and right after this was all over the world in the news. We still get a lot of journalists this day, 2 years later, asking about this campaign.
Congratulations.
So here you see a picture of Japanese national TV. So the whole approach is not to make people feel guilty about eating meat, but is to help them to make a transition towards eating less meat. And so for that we have to give them the tools. It's no longer the time of asking why, it's the time of asking how. People ask how. I mean, I was a meat eater till I was 22, and I ate a lot of meat. And I realized that I wanted to stop eating meat when I was 15 or something. And it took me 8 more years to stop eating meat because I liked it so much. So I know that it can be very difficult for people who are accustomed to eating it. So that's why we want to go slowly and we want to do it in a very positive way. One thing we did was distribute 100, there's more, it's like 200 or 300,000 now, distribute vegetarian street plans. So it's a city plan where people can find what they can eat, where they can eat. So not just vegetarian restaurants, but all kinds of restaurants that have some vegetarian dishes. We informed chefs of kitchens, of schools, of restaurants. We have a brochure for them to tell them why and how to put vegetarian food on the menu. This is an educational leaflet with recipes that we also distributed to citizens in Ghent. This is Little Red Riding Hood. I think it's familiar. I just looked it up on Google, and my Korean is not good, but it's usually something like Algang. Something like Algang? Yeah. So you know it here. So she is not afraid of the wolf on Thursdays, because on Thursdays the wolf is eating vegetarian. This is the image. The image for the school, the campaign image for schools. We have 35 city schools in Ghent, which all are vegetarian on Thursdays. The idea is not that it's not possible to eat meat. So it is possible to eat meat on Thursday if you ask for it explicitly, right? Because we don't want the argument of people like we're being forced to eat vegetarian. No, people can still eat meat if they want, but they have to ask for it special. So we turned around the normal situation and we made vegetarian food the default value, the default option. And that is, I think, a very interesting tool for policy, etc. To make it the default option, not to enforce it, but to make it the default option, so that people will, if they don't do anything, they will get that menu. If they ask for something else, they can get it. But normally, if you don't say anything, you get a vegetarian dish. Right? And the result is that 95% eats vegetarian on Thursday, even though they can still eat it, right? So this is just a way to illustrate the atmosphere of openness and joy and positivity that we try to implement in this campaign. We're not complaining, we're not nagging, we're not blaming people, we're trying to create a positive atmosphere. This was action at the butcher, where we sold, we had the whole counter 2 meters of vegetarian products, and behind the counter was an actress who played a butcher girl in a famous television series, which is actually vegetarian. This is from an event that we, starting event that we organized, and this, I showed this before, this is a campaign image for the city of Ghent, with, you see, if you look closely, you see the goat is an eggplant, and we made the eggplant also for real, with the carrot in it. So there's a lot of, you can see a lot of restaurants that are offering specials on Thursday. This is a Thursday, Veggie Thursday cookbook, which was very successful. It offers recipes for every Thursday, and it goes along with the season, so it's also seasonal recipes. This is the result of a poll that we did a few months ago. So you can see here 30% in Ghent participates at least once a month, and 20% participates a week. There's 15% of the general population that says that they have decreased their meat consumption as a result of the campaign, which is, considering the means that we have, which are little, is not bad at all. Now, in the meantime, the campaign has spread towards other cities. We have, in Belgium now, we have 7 cities which are officially behind the campaign. It means something else in every city. It does mean that we cannot find any meat on those days. It means that the cities are behind the campaign, are putting some money, investing some money in it, to organize events, to make publications, to install cooking workshops, etc. So the whole thing is about supporting the transition, to help people to make the transition. So these are some campaign images. Perhaps some people who have been to Brussels know the Atomio, which is there on the left. It's a big building in the shape of an atom, it's 100 meters tall, and we made this version with tomatoes. It's the Brussels campaign image. And in the meantime, the initiative has spread kind of all over the world. It's not just our work. It's the work of Paul McCartney with the Meat Free Monday campaign. There's also campaigns in the United States. So there's more and more of these campaigns that are being developed in the world. There's also some talk here and there about taxing meat, like making it more expensive, which is a way to include those external costs, which would make the market talk the truth. This is a fork, and Gandhi said that the fork is the mightiest weapon that we have. And I agree absolutely. I think, I repeat, that just by changing the way we eat, we have enormous impact. Eating less meat brings an impact for the planet, for the animals, for our health, and for other people in the developing countries. So I think it's a very urgent message. It's now up to us to figure out a way how to convince big masses of people to eat less meat. Thank you.
감사합니다. 여러 가지 좋은 이점들이 많지만 유엔에서 유엔 축산국가의 연구 결과입니다. 축산업은 단일 분야이면서도 모든 종의 환경 문제, 산림, 벌채,